Throughout history, freethinkers have outraged the religious with their wacky ideas about the virtues of free speech, reason, and of course, eating babies. Now, God is dying, and it's time to dispose of his remains. From the pits of hell, Satan sends two puppets of the imperialist West and the Zionist Jews against God, Islam, and tiny kittens to bring you their propaganda and conspire for a new world order. This is Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment with Ali Rizwi and Armin Navabi.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. And what do we have today? We have a conservative atheist, a libertarian atheist, and a left liberal atheist all walking into a broadcast room here, a virtual broadcast room, to talk to you and actually to talk to each other. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Our guest today is Thomas Sheedy. Thomas Sheedy is an entrepreneur, and he's the founder of the new group Atheists for Liberty. He has held high-level positions in a whole bunch of organizations and is a former Freedom from Religion Foundation, the FFRF. We've had some of them on the show here before. He was awarded Student of the Year by them because it was student activism. So we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different things. This is going to be kind of interesting, I guess. We're from all kinds of sort of different political alignments, and it's going to be kind of interesting to take this conversation beyond that, and that's what I'm really hoping to do. And I think that it's going to be fun. I want to start with one thing. I met Thomas about 3 years ago at a Muslimish conference at Hunter College, and immediately got along. And it's always been in my mind because he's just one of the brightest people that I've ever met. And one of the things he said to me just completely it stayed with me, because there were a lot of major atheist organizations, like American, atheist organizations that were at that time shying away from having ex-Muslims on. Why were they shying away from ex-Muslims on? Muslims can have their secularists and their atheists just like everybody else, but why single them out, which I think is bigoted. But they were doing it because they wanted to not appear to be anti-Muslim. They didn't want to appear to be Islamophobic or pro-Trump or any of those things. So they were completely ignoring that side of things. And it was a blind spot that was frustrating not only to me, but a lot of ex-Muslims. And I think that you actually pointed that out and you were very conscious of it. So really glad to have you back on here. And to start with, let's talk about Atheists for Liberty. Atheists for Liberty. And I know I'm talking a lot right now, but I have to tell you this little story. So I was with, around 2017, Ayan Hirsi Ali had a speakers program thing that she was starting up. So I went there and spent the weekend with her, her and Faisal Mukhtar and a bunch of other people. And they were thinking of what to name the group. So they had a lot of students from different universities, volunteers who were taking part in this project. And we came up with some ideas with the word liberty in it, right? And then a bunch of students got up. They're like, no, we can't use that, because the moment you say liberty, people think it's right wing, right? And then I thought, the moment you say equality, right, then people think it's left wing. And why the fuck do we have this distinction? Shouldn't liberty, equality, all of these things, shouldn't this be something that everybody can agree on? Right? And so Atheists for Liberty, just tell us about it and just your experiences with how it came about and why you think it was needed.
By the way, before you mention that, I have a leftist response to that, and I also have a right-wing response to that as well at some point. Okay,
good. Let's have Thomas.
Well, first off, before I explain what Atheist Liberty is about, I want to thank you both for having me on the program. I am a viewer of the show. I'm a big fan of you both, and I'm really looking forward to see how this discussion turns out. So, Atheists for Liberty, we are a 501c3 educational nonprofit organization. We care about free speech, free thinking, and freedom for all. We fight for 5 core principles, and we're trying to sort of rebuild, or at least bring what atheism was in the United States into a new direction, to sort of boldly go where the atheist movement has sort of not gone before.
Yeah, so I really like that because I thought, I saw your thing where you said that, you just switch from Democrat to Republican, your party affiliation. I know that's a personal thing, but one thing I really like is the conservative side, the Republicans, they need more of this atheism stuff. Like they need a good organization that is part of their own. And there are a few minor ones, but the way I've seen with your website and everything that you guys are doing, I feel like this is something that's going to have a lot of impact. And I'm really glad that you're making your way into that side of the aisle.
Just be careful with the way. Just be careful with the way you're phrasing it, because you first said, then you corrected
already.
Yeah, I'm policing you. This is you said the way atheism was, but then the second way time you said it correctly. The atheist movement. Actually, I have a problem with both of them because atheism was never about. Atheism was always just a lack of belief in God and nothing else, right? Sure. So the way atheism is, and always will be, is just that. That has never changed, and it will never change. It's it's just an answer to one specific question. But then you said the atheist movement, that is better, but again, there's no single atheist movement there as well, right? They're different.
Well, I would argue that there used to be. There used to be a few years ago, and then.
Well, that's a problem. I'm glad that that's not the case anymore, because we have different atheists that have different things that they want to focus on, and different movements could focus on different things. So, atheists differ from each other so much. It would be weird if they had to unite under one movement. Right? That's
true. There definitely this sort of split has been a nice business venture, I guess you could say, an opportunity for an organization like Atheists for Liberty to emerge. But I definitely think, though, that when the movement was more unified, we were able to get a lot more things done. If you look at the United States right now, what major accomplishment within the last 4 years, major accomplishment, something in the history books or on a wiki page about organized atheism has the movement really done from a U.S. perspective. 4 years ago, we were preparing for a second Reason rally. We were fundraising millions upon millions of dollars, trying to get some of the best speakers that we could at this event. And because of internal politics, because of social justice and wokeness, we sort of tore each other apart after that one event. The sort of unity, I guess you could say, that used to kind of be in the organized atheist movement ceased to exist.
All right, so here's the thing, though. If we were as unified as we were before, which is unity for the sake of unity is not always a good thing. Unity, because your organization would not be possible. Imagine if we all wanted to all be like, oh, let's just put our disagreements aside and just be one big movement. Then Atheists for Liberty, like your organization, a lot of people wouldn't exist. Like a lot of things that you stand for, a lot of atheists would be like, no, fuck that. And I mean, so
that's true.
Yeah. And another thing, like tearing each other apart for our disagreements, that's a great thing. Okay, that's a great thing, because we need to a lot of atheists have this assumption that, just because we don't believe in God, that means therefore we should agree on so many other things. And that's an illusion that needs to be completely,
I totally agree. Just because you're an atheist, you don't automatically agree on other issues. However, in the organized movement, there was a sense of business professionalism. These were professional, registered charities, organizations, lobbying groups filled with people with years of potential, where millions upon millions of dollars were fundraised. It's one thing to just have disagreements and show disagreements. Just because we're atheists, we don't always agree. But there was a sense of a shared mission and a shared goal. A shared goal that, in my opinion, was not fully achieved yet, has not been fully achieved yet.
Yeah, so I wanted to actually say that on the one hand, I think it's a good sign when you have factionism. Okay, when you have factionism, that usually means something's grown really big. Because I remember, well, at least how long I've been doing this. I think it's been like 12 years, 13 years or something. Back in the day, there were a few really prominent atheist organizations. There were, I think there was one ex-Muslim. It was Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain with Maryam Namazi. That's where everybody was. And there were these really nice, united, small sort of groups, grassroots, really passionate and motivated and they were focused on a single goal, a singular goal, and that really helps fundraising, right? Because you have one thing, you have one unit, and that has a lot of impact. But then as it grew and grew and grew, obviously you have, we do value diversity, but we also value diversity of thought. Okay, so diversity of ideas within groups. I mean, that's something that gets.
At least that's what most of us value.
I would like to see more of that. And I'm saying this as a left liberal. Okay, I'm saying this as, and I cannot stand the whole woke cult thing, but I will say this is maybe a lot of people think of me as woke adjacent. Woke adjacent. Yeah, that's what I'm calling myself.
And speaking of that, Ali, I know people have been saying there's been a lot of talk from you both and from others recently saying how Atheists for Liberty is a right-wing organization. And there's one thing that is true. We are on the right of woke. So basically, we're trying to attract people of all political walks of life. People like you. I
don't think it was a right-wing organization. Did I?
We are, people have been saying that we are strictly a conservative atheist organization or a right-wing.
On your website, it says conservatives, independents, skeptics, enlightenment values. It has a lot of that.
It has a lot. It does have a lot of that, but we also have traditional liberals, libertarians, centrists on there as well.
I don't like traditional liberals is basically conceding the word liberal to whole to.
Yes, I
don't like traditional classic liberals, traditional liberal. Fuck all that. I'm a liberal, okay? What are we really giving up on that word to people?
No, you don't have to give up on that word.
And everybody's a classic liberal. Yeah,
we're trying to attract people just like the both of you as well. Yeah. Atheists for Liberty. We might have some policy disagreements, but overall, we believe that the values of the Enlightenment are values that should be protected, that religious liberty and secular government and separation of church and state are important values, that this sort of religion of wokeness is something that is abhorrent, and the far right, with them trying to push their beliefs down other people's throats, is abhorrent. We agree on some core principles, and we have some policy objectives and principles that are good enough to where people in all these different groups can at least have a basic consensus.
Okay, but all of that seems contradictory to you joining the Republican Party, though, because that's not a party that stands for these values.
So can I ask on top of that, on Armin's question, is that this is something I want to hear from you, and I know this is a personal decision and this does not represent your organization by any means, but just talking to you from the perspective we're coming from, is that becoming a Republican, I understand. The first letter I ever wrote was to Ronald Reagan. My dad. We've always been all over the place, but that was a different time. Why would you become a Republican in the age of Trump?
Right. So that's a very interesting question.
I mean, the age of Trump ever, the age of whoever, Republican Party in general. After Trump. Okay,
I think people became Republicans during Ronald Reagan's time. There were people you could disagree with them all you want, but you can't say Henry Kissinger or Ronald Reagan or George H.W. Bush that these guys were idiots. I mean, there were ideological differences.
No, they weren't idiots. They were just evil.
No, they weren't, Armin. They weren't
Kissinger?
Evil. He was. Listen, they're all
okay. Hold on. Let's get.
They're all
sort of a basic response here. This is coming from someone, by the way, who started out in politics as a liberal, even progressive Democrat. I became an atheist because of Bill Maher. I got into opposing political correctness because of watching people like Bill Maher. I identified with the Democratic Party for many years, and I supported Hillary Clinton for president in 2016. I voted for Hillary in 2016. The reason why I am personally, you are correct. It has nothing to do with Atheists for Liberty. The reason why I personally made the decision to change my affiliation from Democrat to Republican is because on certain policy positions and on certain positions on other issues, I happen to agree more with the GOP than the Democratic Party. And I'll continue by also saying that the Republican Party, and this is not me being the big defender of the Republican Party. This is just me saying this for completely personal reasons. That the Republican Party is not perfect. It's not a perfect party. It's not a perfect organization. There are still some theocratic types that are in there. However, if you go to, say, conservative events, if you go to CPAC, if you go to conferences by various organizations in the conservative movement, like Turning Point USA or Young Americans for Liberty or Young America's Foundation, you'll find that not only has the religious talk died down on a major scale. But there are atheists and secularists galore at these events.
Oh, I know.
In somewhat of a way, atheism and secularism, really secularism, is changing the American right. The moral majority is dying. It's really dying out. This sort of view of Republicans being these Bible-thumping, gun-holding, and I support the Second Amendment, by the way. I'm just explaining the stereotype. Baby boomers who want to inject their morality and their life into how you conduct yourself. That's going away. It might not be going away at the rate that everyone
but Thomas, when it comes to the influence of, for instance, the moral majority and the Christian evangelicals, I mean, you're looking at the Supreme Court appointments, okay? And we had Andrew Seidel from the Freedom from Religion Foundation on the show, who's an amazing guy, one of my favorite people. And he talked to us about this. And he talked about how, for example, someone like Brett Kavanaugh has written about how the wall between church and state, that interpretation is wrong, right? I'm paraphrasing it. Okay, there is a majority on the Supreme Court right now, 2 of them appointed by Trump, and if he gets reelected, it could be a 7-2 conservative majority, right? For decades to come, where right now there's at least 5 people who disagree with the idea of separation of religion and state the way it is in the U.S. today. Right, that's a fragile situation.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
However, I would still be with the Democratic Party if I was still a single issue voter. I agree with the Republicans on plenty more issues, but again, I'm not in full agreement with the American right, or at least the moral majority perspective on separation of church and state and religious freedom. I think that they have hijacked the idea of religious freedom in the 80s and sort of warped it into injecting policy into government on a legislative level, on an executive level, on a judicial level. But I think the organized atheist movement has made a huge mistake in avoiding the American right, in totally avoiding the other side of American politics, because back in the 2000s and in much of the 2010s, it was Team Blue that happened to be more in favor of atheists being out and fighting for separation of church and state. Now, things are looking quite different, at least from the internal perspective that I've seen.
You can have a change on either party without actually labeling yourself as part of them, right? Like, I have a problem with both I have a lot of problems with the Democratic the Democratic Party, but they are by far better than what the Republican Party stands for. Like, all can you actually deny that the Republican Party is more anti-gay, anti-trans, climate change denier, anti-free speech, anti-secular, anti-woman rights.
Anti-secular, sure. Correct. Yeah, I don't disagree. But the idea that it's...
I mean, any problem that you have with the Democratic Party, which I do as well, is completely... It's a fraction of all the problems that you could attribute to the Republican Party. And so, I mean, if you say, like, I'm not saying ignore the Republican Party and don't try to change it. I don't even ignore fucking self-identifying Nazis. But I don't have to go join the Nazis to have an influence on them. Like, I don't have to actually... I'm not saying... By the way, I know, like, some people are like, Armin, you're comparing Republicans to Nazis. I'm not. I'm coming up with an extreme example to show that you don't actually have to use a group's labels to be able to change or have some influence on them. You could still go to these conferences, in the Republican Party conferences, and try to see if you can make them more secular without actually calling yourself a Republican.
Are there grammar Nazis for Hebrew?
Wait, hold on.
I know that for English, but for Hebrew, are there grammar? Okay. Anyway,
Okay.
a good question.
Thomas.
So, I totally get where you're coming from, but I just don't think that the people in organized secularism, both online and offline, have really seen what organized conservatism has become, especially among millennials and Gen Z. This sort of stereotype of being anti-secular, being anti-gay is actually going away. I'm an officer, an auxiliary officer in my college Republican group. I help with run Turning Point USA events in my local university. Around, I would say 55% of the Turning Point chapter is filled with atheists.
Right. I'm
atheists.
not saying, okay.
who favor separation of church and state.
Sure, the Democrat Party has that as well. I'm not denying whether there's improvement. I'm not what the Republican Party stands for right now, even if it's better than before, is shameful. Even if it is better than before, what it stands for right now is shameful. And we could celebrate the progress. We could demand more progress, but we could do that without giving them more legitimacy while they stand for the things that they do right now. Can we do that?
Well, I would agree with you if I didn't agree with the Republican Party on certain things, and I think I have plenty of people that are Democrats who support the efforts of secularizing the American right more, who wouldn't personally join it but see the benefits of it.
What are the things that you agree on with the Republican Party?
So gun rights, for instance, compared to the Democratic Party, the Republican Party is way more in favor of gun rights. When it comes to the
Democratic Party defends gun rights as well.
Yeah, they're for the Second Amendment.
But they are more in favor of gun control initiatives, which I'm not in favor for. A lot of them are in favor of getting rid of certain assault weapons. Assault weapons meaning semi-automatic weapons. Yeah. So same as pistols, just with a higher caliber. I'm also in favor of standing by police officers more. You're seeing the Democratic Party embrace the Black Lives Matter movement at a higher degree. And I do understand the legitimacy of being against police officers who engage in horrible acts against innocent people. But simultaneously, I think they have been given sort of a bad name over the last few years.
So you decided that gun rights and supporting the police is more important than gay rights
and a few other issues. I'm just labeling some of the top ones in my head.
Okay, those are the most but gay rights, trans rights, climate change, having better judges in the Supreme Court that is going to influence the rights of all minority groups and women.
That's a big thing for me.
And also climate change. All of these is less important than gun rights and supporting the police.
So let's talk about two things here: gay rights and climate change. At Republican events, I have never seen more gay people than I have at even local events driven by LGBT groups.
I think your metric on what the Republican Party stands for is completely flawed. You are judging what the Republican Party stands for based on the people that you meet at their events rather than the policies that they come up with?
That is a legitimate argument. However, what current policy exists in the United States that is specifically discriminatory on a public scale against homosexuals, against gay people?
Oh, come on.
We can have a discussion about maybe trans issues and pronouns and trans stuff, but against gay people.
Hold on, Thomas. Okay, so I think I know. I'm getting an idea of what you're saying. You're saying that, first of all, to Armin's point, and this is what I want to explain, that yes, so I've spoken at libertarian events, right? So has Armin. We've done that. And honestly, they're amazing events. The audience is great. Some of the brightest people that I meet. We always have really, really interesting discussions. But they say the same thing. They're like, look at us. We're gay. We're pro same-sex marriage. And this person, we support separation of religion and state and all that. But the system, the Republican Party, the Supreme Court judges that are being appointed, overall, same-sex marriage, one of the biggest impediments to it was conservatives, right? And yes, Democrats too. I know Hillary was against it, and so was.
And I would say that the conservative movement and the GOP, even just a few years ago, is much, much different in comparison to what it is now.
Is this what it is? Is this what it is? That okay? So you have a certain you have your sort of ideological values, just like all of us do. Right. Sure. And you go to these events and you see these young, and I agree with you. There's a lot of atheists in these young sort of conservative events, and young people are atheists, pro-gay, pro everything. But when it comes to social issues, they're socially liberal. And you see that maybe as a future of the Republican Party, and you want to be part of that.
I think that's where we can come to a consensus on. It's It's not fully the present. The people that are still in power are from a different generation, are of a more religious generation. But the changes in demographics is, to a degree, forcing some of the people in power to sort of change their positions. Look at this is not me. I'm not putting a MAGA hat on my head here, but there's a reason why President Trump is not going crazy about the 2015 Oberfeld-Hodges decision legalizing same-sex marriage across the country. He's not tooting his horn saying, "Oh, that was so terrible. That was so horrible."
Because they were defeated and crushed and humiliated, and they lost the battle.
He could have said, if he wanted to play politics on that and bash the other side, he could say, "Oh, the Obama administration and the Obama Supreme Court, they made a terrible decision, and I would try to fight back against that if I came into office."
But he can't do that because the majority. He goes with the polling. Even the polling, the majority of the population was for same-sex marriage. That changed in like 5 years. So he wasn't going to go against it because everybody's good with it, right? But
exactly.
But he has done the same thing where there are places. Because look, Milo Yiannopoulos, right? The Breitbart folks, a lot of the younger people, that green frog, whatever the fuck it was, I can't remember what it was called. All of that stuff. This was a huge community that was generally socially liberal in a lot of ways. So when they helped him get to power, I mean, he's not going to go and stab them in the back. Now, when it comes to trans stuff, yeah, he totally did. No trans people in the military because they were
something I disagree with.
All right.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I just didn't want to say this because it's too easy, but I have to. You keep saying like the Republican Party is getting better and better, and now that you brought Trump, you are now endorsing a party that gave us Trump. You're endorsing a party, and can you deny that Republicans, young and old, mostly support Trump and endorse Trump?
No, I can't deny that.
You can't deny that. I mean, is that not disgusting? Do you see that as progress? Do you honestly see that as progress? How is that progress? You have a New York
one
of the main problems. One of the main problems people have with the leftists is like, oh, free speech. What happened to free speech? And they are endorsing a president that has been the most dangerous since I don't know when to anything free speech related. Like,
yeah, I agree.
How do you justify it?
So I will. First off, I'll say that this is not a hill that I'm prepared to die on, but I do see it generally as progress in the sense that when it comes to social issues, when it comes especially to the arenas I talk about with secularism and the religious right and all that stuff, who did the religious right elect to office? Who did the moral evangelicals, sensible, family values people vote for? They voted for a New York billionaire who had 3 wives, I wouldn't be surprised if he's cheated on people, who is helped America, right? This is the best that they could elect in 2016. This is the result of the huge strength of the religious right, the moral majority, and the evangelical community for them to get this New York billionaire into office. There's a reason why, if you look at some of the past interviews of President Trump in the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, when he was on shows like Oprah, there was this huge hype about businessman Donald Trump one day running for president or running for office soon. And he repeatedly said during those decades that he wouldn't. He wouldn't do it. And I think that's because, especially if he ran as a Republican, by the way, he would lose. He would not get the evangelical vote at all. The reason why Donald Trump got elected to office is because the religious right, or the remaining portions of it, is desperate to get someone into office who will claim to back some of their policies or initiatives or claim to support
people.
No, that's
Are
a
you
good point,
serious
Armin.
right now? No, what are you talking about?
It's different from what you said. You were right. You were right about the free speech thing, but you went off in another direction. But that is
he's ignoring the free speech part because he knows he can't.
When it comes to
No. It's my turn. It's my turn because you completely diverted to a different direction because if you go to free speech, Trump is the worst candidate. Hold on. Let me respond.
We'll talk about free speech in a bit.
No, but let's go to the religious thing. Do you honestly think Trump is like a defeat for the religious people, a religious Republican?
I think
he's the best thing. he's all their dreams come true. Like, do you think they give a shit about the fact that he himself is not religious? He's giving he's giving them everything they could hope for and more. They're getting him conservative judges.
That's a really good point too. Look at me.
He is giving them conservative judges, but he's giving the evangelicals sort of what they want because he wants to stay in power. He doesn't really care about their value.
And guess what? The religious Republicans don't care either. They just want results. They don't. They keep saying, this is what they say. Like God.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that this is progress. That's all I'm saying. I see this as progress.
It's not progress.
Armin, let him finish.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I am in agreement.
If you introduce Trump as progress, I have to really question your judgment.
I'm not a MAGA hat wearing Trump. I'm saying that when it comes to this question, right, and when it comes to the president, I see this as a result of the moral majority dying. I see this as a result of the religious right dying. Is he pushing for policies that benefit what's remaining of the religious right and the moral majority? Yes, and I don't like it. But I see this as a good thing. I see this as progress. I see this as a result of other elections and other problems that should be fixed on a policy level. Yes, and I agree.
But
Trump's policies is not at all a sign of religious influence dying. It's the exact opposite.
Okay, so I want to reiterate. So Thomas, I want to reiterate that what you're saying is that the evangelicals are so desperate that they can't get anybody else to approve their policies and to get their
but a former New York Democrat billionaire who's hung out with
they're grabbed by the pussy guy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So okay, we got that. So
I'm not disagreeing.
But could there be something else to it? Could there be an element that Trump is going to play to his base? He's going to basically he's sort of, in terms of policy and ideologically, he's kind of an island. He's sort of hollow. He'll go wherever it takes you. So we can sort of manipulate him easier. But wouldn't they have, if they had supported someone like Marco Rubio, right, who's running, if they'd supported, there are many other, Ted Cruz, some of these guys, they could have gotten the same result.
A lot of them, there was a big split during the 2016 Republican primaries. There were a good chunk of them that were supporting Donald Trump because Donald Trump to everybody who came off as really eccentric.
Right.
And this was
but they weren't desperate, though, is what I'm saying. I mean, that was a good. If I was a Republican, that was a pretty good group of people.
They could have gone with Ted Cruz, who was really deep into supporting evangelicals. They could have gone with other Republican candidates. They went with Donald Trump.
Can I tell you why Donald?
Actually, wait. I'm sorry. I was confusing this because of the results of the Republican primary. A lot of them did try to go for Ted Cruz, and a lot of them did try to go to Marco Rubio. They went to Donald Trump at the end of the day because of the fact that he just won the Republican nomination because most Republicans cared for him, and they had to go with him. And many evangelicals.
Can I say a few things?
That's different from them being desperate. But go ahead, Armin. Yeah.
Two things I want to say. First of all, Trump is a lot better for the Christian conservatives than Ted Cruz would have ever been, because what the Christian conservatives require is not just somebody that they like and will push their agenda, but somebody that the rest of the Republican Party could get behind as well while pushing their agenda. So Trump is a lot better for Christian conservatives than a Ted Cruz. Another thing is, by the way, I just want to point out that what Christians would say to this, Christians might point to like, oh, look at King David, right? He was like a flawed person. He sent a person to the front to get killed so he could fuck his wife or something like that. Like, look at all the shitty things he did in the Bible, but he was still a weapon of God. He was a vehicle of God. God uses flawed people to do his will and push.
I know some people were trying to compare
God
to King Cyrus. Who was the king that the biblical figure that they were trying to compare Trump to? Cyrus or Cyprus? I forgot his exact.
King Cyrus of Persia.
King Cyrus. King Cyrus, right? And I think they're doing that because they are doing what they can to bolster up their candidate as much as possible. They're trying to figure out whatever they can to bolster up the brand and to bolster up their influence. That's
They're
what
winning. They're winning, and that's because of a. Do you like? By the way, do you
I
like
don't
Trump?
think so.
Do you like Trump?
There are things I like about him and some things I don't.
What do you like about Trump?
Going into free speech, for instance, he signed an executive order back in, I believe, in March or April of 2019, protecting free speech on college campuses.
Okay,
he did that.
That is so. Okay,
but what?
Okay, first of all.
But that's a formality,
God.
Thomas.
No. First of all, that's not even a free speech issue. That's not even a free speech issue. Okay.
How's it not a free speech issue?
Okay.
That's
first
a
of all,
platforming issue. It's not a First Amendment
it's a platform issue, exactly. And you know what's a free speech issue? Going after journalists.
Yes. Jamel Hill, ESPN. So the ESPN reporters telling them that they should be fired. Telling people with Colin Kaepernick, who's taking a knee, you can agree with him, you cannot agree with him. It's up to you. But like this idea of, we should make burning the flag illegal. We should not allow people to take a knee. These people should be fired. All this stuff, and calling the press the enemy of the people, threatening to tighten libel laws so that you can control the press more. Come on, we talk about the left and free speech. Free speech is an issue. It's a problem. It's under threat from both like these far left and the far right. The problem is the far right has a president in the White House, right? That's one of the differences.
Yes. However, when it comes to say, first of all, I disagree. Top 10 journalists are the enemy of the people. That is something I do disagree with. But when it comes to that executive order, that issue is a big problem when it comes to people's freedom of speech. It's the reason why many of us, over the years, all three of us got into this debate about freedom of speech and talking about certain ex-Muslim issues on college campuses and this kind of stuff. We all got deep into this conversation, and I've seen it many times. You've had ex-Muslims, you've had libertarians, you've had atheists, you've had conservatives being deplatformed, or you'd have crowds of social justice activists coming into a room, disturbing people's right to even speak. And this is what kind of got a lot of us into these sort of free speech discussions. It is a huge problem, and people do.
This is because you don't understand what free speech is. This is because you don't understand what free speech is. Look, Atheist Republic was removed from Facebook 3 times, right? Yep. And we managed to get it back. And I also was deplatformed for canceled for my speech in Montreal University. What?
In Canada, yes, but also in Oxford, weren't you?
No, Oxford.
Oh, no, that was different. Sorry.
Oxford was because of COVID-19. That was not a canceling thing. But in Montreal University, I was the platform event canceled, and the people who came to defend me, they were constantly saying, "Oh, what happened to free speech? What happened to free speech?" But I never, in any of those situations, claimed that my free speech was violated. Okay,
I know where you're coming from.
I did go and say that this is a bad idea. I did argue against it. I thought it was bad policy, but never once did I claim that my free speech was violated.
So now I totally get where you're coming from, and this is actually where I totally understand how Ali kind of labeled you as a libertarian. There has been a debate, even on the American right, between more libertarians and conservatives on whether deplatforming really is a violation of free speech, because some of these companies have freedoms of speech, have their freedom of speech to do what they want as a company.
Free market.
Free speech is about government. Yeah. Free speech is about.
I understand that argument. I do understand that argument. I understand where you're coming from on the specifics.
So that's why Trump is anti-free speech when he wants to silence the media. That is a violation of free speech.
Thomas, I feel like I know it feels like we're ambushing you, and we are going to move to other topics. But the one thing but I know you're one of our firebrand atheists, and that's why I love you. Yeah. So, but one of the things that we're actually not talking about in this whole conversation, to add to what Armin's saying, is that is Christian colleges. Conservative colleges.
Before we
hold on, Armin,
can you read Jim King's comment, because it's very relevant to what we just said?
I will. So I know I am going to. Let me just finish this point. Like to add to your free speech argument, and specifically to you, Armin, like with the Christian colleges on the right. I mean, Bob Jones until very recently didn't even allow interracial dating, right? Bob Jones University. And these are people who donated to the Republican Party. The Republican Party.
Right. They want their influence to stay.
Yeah, I know.
They really want their influence.
Yeah, so we're talking about Berkeley, we're talking about all these other places, but we're not talking about all the Christian colleges that severely
I totally agree.
Free speech even more, like Liberty University. Trump loves Liberty University. Jerry Falwell Jr. is a huge fan of evangelicals. Liberty University does not allow. Do you think Armin could go and speak at Liberty University? There's no way in hell. Like
I would say maybe only because he has spoken out against Islam.
Okay, but what if I want to do a speech against Christianity?
No, they would, and I would be totally against their decision.
It's way worse.
Yeah, so Trump is a hypocrite then. Even when it comes to colleges, he's a hypocrite.
Yeah,
I do agree on some aspects of that. I'm not disagreeing.
Yes.
Well, okay, so that's
basically you support a party that is widely in support of an idiot.
He agreed, man.
Okay. Also, another thing too. The reason why I'm also talking about the generational difference is because in either a year from now or 4 years from now, President Trump will be gone. And you could say, well, he could make an impact, a huge impact in the years, with his administration in the years to come, and it's totally true. And it's totally true. However, simultaneously, as generations move on, the young conservative atheists, the young conservative seculars, they're the ones that are going to be in power. And right now, this is a big discussion that you guys should be focusing on. There is sort of a big split between millennials and Gen Z on the right. There is sort of a civil war happening. Mainstream conservatism is being taken over by people like me, by secularists, by atheists who are fine with working religious people, but care about secular government. And that us being like the church ladies from the 1990s, caring so much about being anti-gay, anti-science, that it's just not a good move. That if they want to save their movement, they really need to abandon that. However, there has been pushback, and I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to right-wing politics recently, especially among young people, by a group of people called the Groypers.
The what?
The Groypers. They are on your radar. They are the Groypers. You know Pepe the Frog? They've used Pepe the Frog. They are, it's not the alt-right. It's not Spencer's crowd. This is a new crowd of people. They're led by a man who's my age, a few months younger than me, named Nick Fuentes. He is a conservative radio host. He's 21 years old, and he leads a show called America First. What he did when Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Dan Crenshaw, and a few others went on their college tours throughout the United States in the fall of 2019. Nick Fuentes sent his Groypers to the Q&A sessions of all these events. And what he did is he asked, why, Charlie Kirk, are you sitting up on stage with a gay black man? Aren't we a Christian country? And you're starting to see these Groypers get more and more agitated, basically trying to do a lot of damage to what the right is becoming, more this secular anti-SJW stuff. They don't like that their Christian conservative Republican Party is going away. They hate it. And they want to do whatever they can to make sure that people like me, people like us, don't get in there, to continue seeing the conservative movement change. You had Andrew Seidel on the show. He uses the word Christian nationalist a lot. These are the real Christian nationalists that you should be worried about. And these people are seen as a disgrace, by the way, within mainstream conservatism.
This is the same kind of thing that's happening.
You guys should check
in the Democratic Party, right? You've got the sort of the woke people who it turns out now are a voting minority, and you have the sort of more mainstream left liberal people. There is a sort of a cleft between. They're like the whole Bernie and versus Biden type thing. So it's Can
we mention what Jim King's saying, because that's very important?
Yes, okay, I saw that comment.
I saw that. It's abhorrent.
Yeah, so Jim King is saying, this is when we're talking about free speech and how, the free speech is a problem from the left. But here, Jim King is absolutely right. Trump said people who burn the flag maybe should go to jail for a year or lose their citizenship.
I have not done the research on that, but I will give the benefit of the doubt and say that Jim is right, that President Trump said that. And this is something where, again, I disagree with the president on. I think
would you burn the flag in protest? Would you burn the flag in protest?
No.
Why?
Because I love my country. I think America is one of the greatest countries in the history of the world. We are a beacon for women's rights, for freedom of speech, for people to do whatever they want, to stand by the Enlightenment. I love this country. But if people want to burn the American flag,
yeah, but wouldn't the reason why a person could love a country is because of the values that it stands for, and one of those values that it stands for would be freedom of expression. So maybe he was standing for the values of the United States more by burning the flag burning the flag will actually be an expression. Burning the
when you put it that way,
burning the United States flag is an expression of the values that the United States stands for.
This is why I love Armin. This is what. How can you not?
It's definitely
he can convince anybody to do shit that they don't want to do for the right reason, and they will do it.
I gotta say, Armin, it's definitely possible. But with most people that usually burn the American flag, they usually are of a certain political side on the spectrum, and are doing it usually in defiance of certain American policies or of like a style that sort of berates American patriotism. However, I know this doesn't apply to everyone, and I fully support someone's right to burn the flag, even if I personally disagree with the decision.
Okay, so would you not, in honor of the United States, would you not burn the flag to celebrate its values? Couldn't you like make a video like I'm burning the U.S. flag to separate the free speech that the United States?
Well, would you burn a Quran to celebrate how great the contents of the Quran are?
Yeah, I would. I did, and I did.
Not to celebrate how great the content. Okay, guys, come on.
I like the Quran as mythology. It's fucking awesome.
We made the.
Yes, I bet you don't agree with the tenets, the moral tenets of.
Yeah.
No, I have Qurans that I would never burn because they're so expensive. This one is very expensive, and I love it, and I like the way it looks. But I have cheaper Qurans that I burn. I have burned, yeah, but I mean, I'm not.
You want the Quran, Arm?
What?
He's got a very okay. So I want to move on to something else. So this is another thing that I want to talk about, just in terms of race. Okay, so right now we've got the protests going on. I'm not going to get into too much of them because we had a whole episode, and Armin and I kind of talked about every argument when it comes to that. But and you mentioned that you had some misgivings about the Black Lives Matter movement, and I think on that thing I probably have more differences between you guys. We won't get into it. But when it comes to race, do you think that one of the problems with Trump that I have, right, and this is one of the reasons I left Islam, one of the reasons I left religion overall, is this whole condoning of slavery and the racism, the tribalism, the separation. That's one of the huge reasons for me. Right, one of the deal breakers for Trump, I mean, among many, was the birtherism thing. When he did the birtherism thing, and let me tell you why. Okay, so Obama. Supposing Obama was born in Kenya, right? Supposing he was, his mother was white American from Kansas, born in Kansas. Everybody knows she was, right? So the birtherism issue should never have been an issue in the first place. Do you know why? Because Ted Cruz, who we talked about, wasn't born in the U.S. He was born in Canada.
Yeah.
And his father was born in Cuba. Right? Only his mother was born in the U.S. Okay, and now on the basis of his mother being born in the U.S., he got natural born citizen status, and he was eligible to run for the presidency. And apart from a couple of jokes about, Canadian Ted Cruz, nobody gave a shit. Nobody gave a shit. In fact, the same people who thought that Obama, he was born in Kenya, he's not a real American, the same people who thought he was disqualified to be president were supporting Ted Cruz. Right? So to me, I mean, that's just one reason of many why I think just unequivocally birtherism is very hard to see that as anything except, this guy, he can't really be American. No, give me the long form birth certificate. No, well, show me who else was in the room. Like this thing, when they talk about race, and now Trump is trying to say that he's done more for black people, and he's got like Candace Owens and Kanye West and all these guys coming. Like, do you think, right? And I understand identity politics is a shit show. On the left, it's the identity politics for the black and brown people. On the right, it's the identity politics of the Judeo-Christian heritage and European. So it's to me that is also a problem on both sides. But is Trump a racist? That's a simple.
I personally don't think he is. But first off, before I go in a bit to more of that, I do agree with you a little bit on the birther issue. First of all, I don't think that most people who we're ignorant enough to agree that the birther issue has credibility, come from a race-based position. However, to say that is the case for nearly all of them would also be a mistake. I remember I watched a clip on YouTube. This was of an Al Jazeera interview, I believe, from a Sarah Palin rally in 2008. The video was kind of viral for a while. You guys should check it out. It's quite disgusting, actually. This was at a Sarah Palin rally. I believe this is in 07 or 08, leading to the election. And you had a bunch of, I would assume, Republican individuals who were there. They were old. They were in their like 70s and 80s, calling Obama the N-word. Saying that he's a Muslim automatically, and that he was not born in the United States, or he didn't care that he's a Muslim. All these different just insulting and bigoted remarks. So there are definitely people that were not only ignorant to believe the birther issue, but did come at it from a place of faith. That needs to be acknowledged, and that I can't defend at all. Okay, I'm going to say that up front. I think that there are some people, some Americans, that are just blatantly ignorant, maybe not coming from a place of faith, but ignorant enough to believe a claim that as stupid as that.
So I'm working on. So let me just quickly say something. I'm working on a project right now where we're talking about sickle cell disease, for my other job, and that happens more in Black people. And I was reading some papers about it, and they're talking about explicit racism, which is like what you were saying, the people at the Sarah Palin rally where they explicitly say the N-word and, attack people. Then there's implicit racism. And that's the kind of thing that you see in, for example, the healthcare system. That's the evidence I was reading, or, I'm in law enforcement and stuff, where there are people sometimes inadvertently, just because, and this is why they call it systemic, is because they're saying that there are certain systems that have been in place for a very long time. And whether you intend to or not, those things do come out. Okay, so I agree with you that a lot of the people who were birthers, right, were probably not explicitly racist. They probably were not racist at all, consciously, right? But there was an implicit, this idea that, okay, Obama must have been born, he's a foreigner, whereas Ted Cruz, who actually was born in a foreign country, right, that he's completely eligible to be president, right? So there's it doesn't have to be overt racism, right? And
I think it's ignorance and pure partisanship.
Okay, so
Can I
ask you, hold on. Let me just finish one thing. Trump, okay, so you answer the question: is he racist? But do you think that when he does stoke these racial divisions, do you think that he does it on purpose for political advantage? Because there is a political advantage to his base, but if he does it on purpose, right, then isn't that worse than just being a racist to bring it out in people?
To be honest, depending on some of the things he says, I don't know if he's done all of it on purpose. I think that there are some things that he genuinely just thinks is not trying to stoke a reaction. But no, not in a racial way, but just saying stuff as part of his political viewpoint, per se, and not trying to say something on Twitter to get a reaction. There are some stuff that he has said to get that reaction, but but just based on what I've seen of him over the past few years, I think there's some stuff that he does genuinely believe and just thinks is normal. I think President Trump sometimes is just in his own world. Okay. And there are people on the left and right that can sort of agree on that when it comes to him. Oh yeah. And I think it is an issue, especially when you are the commander in chief and the executive of this country, of the United States. I think he should have a better worldview and analyze things in his mind before putting them out. I don't disagree with everything he says or puts out, but there are some things where I look on his Twitter feed sometimes and I say to myself, oh, why did he have to say that? Or maybe he could have worded that a little differently. I'm not totally disagreeing with you there. I think he could do a better job at with his messaging to the public.
The greatest understatement of all time. But here's
I'll put that on my profile.
Here's the thing, though.
I feel like Armin and I have switched roles here.
The problem with Trump goes way, way beyond racism. I think racism is the least, the smallest. It's not even an issue compared to the other things that Trump is responsible for. I don't even, I don't think he's even a racist. He's not smart enough to even hold an ideology, I think. I just think the only thing he's good at is just selling stuff. And if racism,
I think he's very smart.
I think he's a smart seller. If racism sells, he goes with it. He himself doesn't hold any. I don't think he himself holds any philosophy that he's tied to. But here's the thing. He's a fucking war criminal. Right? I mean, that's the main thing that everybody seems to ignore. Like, everybody's like, oh, look at his language on Twitter. Look at the way he speaks. Look at the way he's holding a Bible. Oh, he said this, and I think his intentions were racist. Who the fuck cares? He's bombing children. And that makes any defense of Trump inexcusable, in my opinion.
I have not studied Trump's foreign policy actions probably as much as you have.
Maybe you should before you support him.
However, Armin, I'm not trying to.
Okay.
I'm not trying to box you here.
I am. Okay, go
Armin.
Okay. And look, can you make the argument though that at least under several U.S. administrations, under both parties, Democrat and Republican, Trump, Obama, Bush, Clinton, Bush Sr., Reagan, that they have engaged in certain foreign policy actions that have resulted in civilian casualties, maybe unnecessarily?
Oh, hell yeah! So the defense of I call Obama let me answer you. Let me answer you fully. Yes, I call Obama, Clinton, and Bush also war criminals. And if the defense of Trump's war crimes is that, hey, we have other presidents who were war criminals, like that is the defense. Here's what I will tell you. Obama sanctioned Saudi Arabia's killing of innocent people, including children in Yemen, and Trump increased it. So he's an even bigger war criminal than Obama ever was.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Thomas.
But go on, sorry.
We are getting comments saying that we should let Thomas speak.
But I made my point faster. I don't start my stories about my experience. But go on.
Hey,
sorry.
I
like Shakespeare.
This has been a debate that's been going on in American foreign policy for years. Under our foreign policy objectives, either for ideological reasons or for business reasons, really good if it means people's lives being completely destroyed, people being murdered and killed as a result of our military actions. It is a real concern, but this is not strictly a Trump problem. And I don't think that this debate is going to be settled, in the next 4 years even. I think this is going to be a debate that's going to happen for the next half century. We're still dealing with the ramifications of the Iraq War. We're still dealing with the ramifications of the war on terror and U.S. involvement in Afghanistan. I think that you could definitely have a problem, say, with the system as a whole, because remember, President Trump, just like Presidents Obama, Clinton, and Bush, they have been advised on many of these foreign policy actions by individuals who have been in politics and have been in administrations for decades.
That's whataboutism. I agree with
that, yeah.
But that's whataboutism.
It is whataboutism, and I think I'm playing the game very well with you.
I mean, you're very good at committing logical fallacies.
No.
That's what you just said.
No, I want to actually, what Thomas is saying, I do want to say, because I've read about this, and Obama, right, he went in, when he started his career, he started it with, the Weather Underground people, Bill Ayers, in his living room, did his first talk, and so he was a very far left kind of guy. And then what happens to these guys, and this, I'm telling you, this would happen with Bernie too, is that once they get elected, they go into the Oval Office, they become president, and then, the CIA and all the other intelligence agencies, they come in, they're like, oh, here's your first intelligence briefing. This is what's going on around the world. Oh. And they look at it, and all these presidents, no matter how left-wing or right-wing they are, they're like, oh, fuck. And then the same policies continue. Because then they realize all this real shit about what they have to do. That does not just, listen, that does not justify what's happening in Yemen. I think that there are aberrations. I think we should all talk about it. And that's why those things stop. Those things do stop. Foreign policies do change because of presidents. The U.S. presidents are notoriously weak domestically, right? Because they're just accountable to too many other things. And they're notoriously powerful when it comes to foreign policy. and so they do have some latitude to change it, but there are realities on the ground that
there's
that's why they're
nothing. There's no piece of document that anybody could be able to put in front of you that will convince you
to bomb
that
children.
It's okay for us to fuel Saudi Arabian planes on top of the Persian Gulf, knowing that right after, United States planes coming out, fueling Saudi Arabian planes that are carrying United States weapons that will sold to Saudi military for the sake of creating jobs in the United States, knowing very well by intelligence reports. Actually, the intelligence reports that are put in front of your desk should make you be against this, because all those intelligence reports showed to you exactly how they were going to be used, and you still sign off of those things.
And we should do nothing that benefits the Saudis, by the way. One thing I disagree with a lot of Republicans in office, for instance, is that we should end our alliance with Saudi Arabia.
And Democrats.
Democrats. I will say, actually, defending Democrats here, there are some Democrats more on a foreign policy level that are actually also in favor of abandoning the Saudi alliance, but I think that's just because Trump is in office and he's working closely with the Saudis. If the Democrat was president, the Democratic Party would switch too. But if we are against Iran, and if we're against Iranian domestic policy, and we're against the domestic
government
of Iran's government, yes. And if we were against the actions of the Islamic State, we should also be against the actions of Saudi Arabia and what they're doing. And because we're getting some incentive, it's really silly. I don't support countries with kings that chop off the heads of non-believers and homosexuals. I don't. And I think we should end
support a president that supports them, though.
But yeah, I have too. I mean, we have the Democrats, Republicans. They all do.
I haven't. My conscience is clean on this. You guys are both hypocrites.
Come on over to America or North America. We'll give you a dirty conscience.
It's not about it. The toughest choices are between bad and worse. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like there are blind spots that all of these people have, and you're right. Like when they're senators. People saying, well, Senator, look, I remember talking to Insaf, Raif Badawi's wife, and she said, well, Marco Rubio is doing a lot. He's talking a lot about releasing Raif Badawi and everything. And telling me, well, so did Justin Trudeau when he was running. And when they actually get in a position of power and they have to talk to the Saudis and they get a memo, don't talk to them about this. Otherwise, you're going to have 20% unemployment in your country, right? Because of what they're going to do. And they're like, okay, we can't do as much.
We won't mention that.
And the same thing would happen to Marco Rubio. There's a lot of this stuff is more complicated. I want to move away from. I know we've talked about Trump for a very long time. I can't believe
one last thing about Trump. Are you a protectionist, Thomas?
Define it.
Do you wear condoms? No, I don't get on.
Not anymore.
Are you not for more trade deals, free trade with more countries, lower barriers to trade with as many countries as possible?
This has been a big debate going on in right-wing politics for quite a while now over the past few years with Trump being in office. The Republican Party used to be heavily in favor of trade deals, and then when President Trump came along, and actually we're seeing the same thing happen on the left too. Both the right and the left, the emerging right and the emerging left, are against trade deals. Both are becoming very populist, and in some ways, I actually see the benefit of that. I like the sort of new nationalism that is brewing in America. I just don't like the problems that come alongside it. Some of them that we've discussed, but I think trade deals are beneficial, and I do not like both the American right and the American left abandoning that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you call yourself you're atheist for liberty. Right? Liberty means less barriers and regulations for trade.
Yes.
And you're supporting one of the most protectionist presidents in the history of the United States. I
don't support everything the president does. I support him on some issues. I don't support him on others. That's how politics is. That's how it should be. Yeah. You should be nuanced when it comes to elected officials. You should agree with elected officials on some things, disagree with others.
Yeah, I just don't see the list of stuff that makes this a horrible, horrible president just outweighs it by a wide margin, I just think. Anyways, let's move on to what Ali wanted to move on to.
No, I wanted to. First of all, I got to say, I think this is great. It's really good to challenge each other on these kinds of things. So
Absolutely.
it's especially within the atheist community. This is the kind of conversation I think we've been missing for a very long time.
All three of us would get banned off of the organizational platforms that many of us used to be on.
Yeah,
we're having these conversations.
So I want to know. So you said that there are some things that you agreed with. So we all talked about this, like when we talk about the Christian universities, we talk about freedom of speech, both from the far right and the left, and Trump and everything like that. And we're talking about certain things that we're aligned on as atheists. Separation of church and state. We're all three of us are very concerned about the Supreme Court, the direction it's taking, the influence of the Christian evangelicals. And yes, eventually it may die out and it may be on the way down, but the Supreme Court, the way it is going to last for decades. And, we're not under any illusions that if he's elected for another 4 years, he is going to appoint people who the evangelicals like. So what is... with Atheists for Liberty, I know that you're providing a place for conservatives and independents and everything to come in, and liberals as well. But
liberals.
What are you doing specifically? Because one of the things that Armin and I are both liberals, right? And we disagree on some things, we are. But we do call out very frequently, right, the regressive left. And sometimes we call them out, these sort of far left, woke type people. We call them out and we slam them sometimes even more aggressively than we do the sort of the conservatives, which we're against in general.
Because there are people claiming to stand for equality.
Yeah, and no, because there are people on our side.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, on your team, you should have good representation.
I do have to hold them to a higher standard. So with Atheists for Liberty, what are the things about conservatives and about Republicans and about independents, like some of the things, the people that you have, what are the issues that you think are dangerous on your side that you really, really want to hold your own party to account for?
You want to talk about something that I think you'll get you and me very fired up, but in a good way? I won't name any names. I don't know if you'll name any names.
Oh, that's great.
What I love, like I said earlier, is that sort of this anti-SJW, anti-regressive left culture that we saw in the atheist community. It forced a lot of atheists, or made a lot of normal atheists leave the atheist movement before they got kicked out, and they went either into conservatism or libertarianism or the IDW or anything on the anti-feminist, anti-SJW side. A lot of them, continue to watch secular jihadists, right, with you guys. So, the whole monolith of stuff. But there are some atheists that left and said, well, the left or the social justice types or the regressives, they are so bad. They've said stuff that's so horrible. And now that I'm part of the right, I'm going to pretend that I've had an awakening on religion. Or I'm going to pretend that now I think religion is very important. Or I'm going to pretend that I really am, promote Judeo-Christian values. Because the left and the social justice folks are way, way worse. And it's like a little trap that they got themselves in, that because social justice stuff in the left is so bad, that I also have to change my views on religion too. And that's something that really, really pisses me off, because when I've actually spoken to even many evangelicals, Ali, most of the time they actually didn't care. They were actually very friendly. You could have a friendly debate with them about religion. Even like the young evangelicals, they really did. They would disagree with you, obviously, but there wasn't this environment like there was in the atheist movement, where you had to pretend to be into social justice, where you had to pretend to be a new Christian or an awakened Christian. The thing that annoys me is that there are some atheists that still play that game when they go over to the right, and it's annoying, especially when secularism and atheism is running rampant among the young ranks in the right. And it infuriates me. I know it's infuriated you too. It makes my job a lot harder. Yeah, that's one thing.
A step in between like that is for atheists. They're like, hey, listen, I'm an atheist still, but Judeo-Christian principles are the foundation of our civilization. Responsible for all the greatness of Western countries. Like, oh my God!
I hate that. I bang my head against a wall, because they don't even have to do that. When I used to go to some atheist conferences, the moment I walked into the hotel door and went into the lobby, I could feel the aroma of like, holy crap, I have to shut up. Like there's redhead person there, bluehead person there, pinkhead person in the corner. They're all watching each other. And they're like, the moment someone slips up at the hotel bar and says something, there's going to be a Pathos or Free Thought Blogs article tomorrow. And it was this fucking shit show of a community, of what it's turned into regarding that environment. And many of the people, like myself and like others that I've known, we pretended to be into social justice, or we pretended to care, or many of us were neutral. Many people, particularly on the YouTube scene, who I think are really in agreement, say, with me on this stuff, but won't admit it. They kind of feel that aroma of, holy crap, if I say something that contradicts social justice or the regressive left at an atheist conference, there will be a Pathos or Free Thought Blogs article about me tomorrow. I will lose 100 Facebook friends, and you'll have the baby boomer but still pink-haired organizers in the atheist community in the US blogging about you and commenting until their fingers pop off.
I can't relate to that.
Right, in the conservative movement, that aroma to be a Christian is not there. And atheists still, and there's some atheists, this is the majority of atheists who go to the right or are, against the regressive left, don't do this, but there are some that do, and they don't even have to do that. I had to pretend to at least tolerate social justice or not speak out about it in fear of me getting removed from the movement or from certain organizations. These atheists on the right don't have to. And it makes my job infuriating. It's like arguing with agnostics half the time.
I think when you say the Christians do come after you aggressively, very aggressively, if you insult their God or anything like that.
The people that are specifically in like Christian organizations or like in higher positions when it comes to being the like branded Christians, maybe. But when it comes to people, even Christians that are not really into Christian conservatism, but more just being in mainstream conservatism,
even on this
environment isn't even there.
Even on this podcast, I have experience with anti-Islam Christians who supported this became patrons in this podcast, and then give up their patronage once we started talking about Christianity.
That's so dumb. That's ridiculous.
No, but the fact that we experienced that on such a small level, to me, suggests that big organizations will probably fear lose funding and stuff like that, because of the backlash they might experience from their Christians.
That's true. That is legitimate concern. I just, in my own experience, I have not seen it, and I've done a lot of research on the organized conservative movement now, just like I've done a lot of research on the atheist movement. It's like when some people say most like hardline atheists, or like that one atheist that you find in a Facebook group that misbehaves or says something really stupid or outlandish. It doesn't speak for the whole. It doesn't speak for the whole group. I don't really see that environment where I had to pretend to be super soft on Christianity, even now on in this sort of regressive left kind of circles that I've been in. It's much different in those two contexts.
You're saying not all, but I could say not all about the left as well. Most of the left is not the woke cult. I agree with you. Most of the left is not for canceling, deplatforming.
Most liberals don't favor that at all.
All right, so
I mean that's what they like. Bernie wins when it comes to tweets, but he doesn't win when it comes to voters. That's the exact opposite. Exact opposite. He gets completely trounced. Can't even get enough people to beat like a guy who's hated on Twitter. But anyway, I think that this is a problem just universally, right? I think Armin's right. We kind of see our side of things based on our personal experience, but I've heard stories from other people as well who feel the same way when they're going to conservative circles as well. So I think one of the problems is social media. So usually whenever you have any kind of new, different, transformative idea, it is going to be opposed by 99% of people. That goes for the first women's rights activists, right? Decide to step out of the kitchen and go into the workplace. Okay. It goes for the first person who came out and said, I think, the gay people should have rights. They should be allowed to say they're gay. They're normal. The vast majority of people oppose it. Suffrage movement. Women should be allowed to vote. The vast majority of people. Civil rights.
And
if you had
Twitter, when it comes to
No, sorry. I'm just going to finish this point. If you had Twitter at that point, okay, and Harvey Milk came out and said, well, I think gay rights are okay. At that time, he would have been the vast majority of them would have been completely, how dare is he saying this? Yeah. And then he would have said, I apologize if I have retracted this tweet. And, he would have had to do that. That's what's happening nowadays. People they're too focused on the reaction. And honestly, this is why I was saying I can't relate to it. When you're going in there and, Free Thoughts or Patheos blog, like, gives a fuck about a Patheos blog?
Well, in the atheist community, when you're in these organizations and it's tied to these bloggers, it sadly does impact you. Which is
the majority. It's what do you think what you think, or do you not think what you think? Right? Like I've been called, I've been called Islamophobic at one point. Nowadays, I get called an SAW and woke and all this shit. But who gives? Like, I enjoy it. I think it's fun. I made a coronavirus joke. I said, if you have coronavirus, do all these steps, take care of the hygiene, and then go to Trump rallies and, lick supporters or something. I made some sort of joke like that.
Right.
And it was a joke because I grew up on people like George Carlin, Vicky, where you could joke about anything. And there were all these articles and loads of blogs, like insane podcaster suggests killing, there's bioterrorism and Trump rally, like all kinds of shit. I thought it was hilarious. Like you can't. This is one thing. If there's one message I have, and I feel very strongly about this to everybody, whether you're conservative, whether you're liberal, whatever you are, if you're saying what you believe and what you think, right, online, and unless someone legitimately changes your mind, doesn't make you feel guilty or ashamed or whatever, but changes your mind, make your point. Just continue. It doesn't matter if it's you against the world. All of the biggest transformative changes in history happened with one person against the world.
I agree 100%. And this is why I stopped playing the sort of social justice game within organizations. I saw these organizations that used to have millions of dollars in their budget be reduced to barely anything anymore because of the divide and what happened, what we discussed earlier. And for too long, in 2017, in parts of 2016 and 2017, I still play that game, and I wish I didn't. I wish that Atheists for Liberty started years ago. I wish that Armin and I started talking years ago. I think we should have had these conversations way earlier. I remember, Ali, you and I, when we were at the sort of the after party of that Muslimish conference. Right. We were at a German pub, a New York German pub. That was a lot of fun. That's where we really got to discuss face to face. I remember when I was talking to you, I was talking to so many different organizers. I was on a quest going to different conferences trying to figure out what the heck happened at Reason Rally 2 in 2016. Yeah. There was, and I won't name this person, but there was an organizer of Reason Rally 2 at that event. You might remember this. Mm-hmm. And you and I were talking, and I said to this person, hey, I'd love to ask you a very important question because it's been troubling me for a while. And this individual said, sure. And I said, you were on the planning committee for Reason Rally 2. It turned into such an abysmal failure, and we've been seeing what was once a very vibrant new atheist movement turn into a joke, a ghost of its former self. Mm-hmm. What happened? What happened at that event? And he said, Thomas, do you really want to know? Do you really want to know? And I said, yeah, just tell me. He comes up to my ear, it's a guy, and he whispers 2 words, social justice. And then he leaves the bar and goes on his way.
I want to say one thing about social justice, and I agree. I think when we talk about social justice in terms of social justice warriors and the whole virtue signaling thing, yes, I'm allergic to that, even though I do embrace a lot of it when it comes to certain issues. But I think social justice overall, like the idea of civil rights and the way that Martin Luther King did it, that's that's not what
it's like the word feminism, right?
We're not talking
wave is something I totally support, and what it's become now is just something I don't. But the term and what it's meant to mean, I'm not opposed.
Armin.
Yeah, everyone here is against a war called blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it's like 2015 time.
Yeah, but again, the thing that you mentioned that I disagree with is, I don't know actually if I disagree with it or not, but a lot of people are like, oh, look at this movement that failed, and this shows that atheist.
I was going to ask about that. New atheist.
It's not the same as it was. The atheist movement is bigger than it has ever been. It's been growing. People are not paying attention. They're just looking at...
Atheism is growing.
atheist movement is also growing. There's many movements, and they're all growing globally. We are having a lot of success everywhere.
Globally,
and you just looking at this example, it failed over.
I'm looking from the Western and United States model of what's happened within these professional multi-million-dollar organizations. I agree with you. Now, so the
ones that failed should have failed.
International atheism is growing. I remember watching David Silverman when he was on the podcast with you guys saying that atheist republic is sort of the new cool thing. It is.
Who said
you guys
that?
are growing and you're doing an excellent job. But
say that again.
I remember Dave was talking to you guys. I think it was on Secular Jihadists, and he said that atheist.
Jessica Alba said that.
Wait, Ali always interrupts the best line that I want to hear.
How atheist republic is the future. He was talking about how atheist republic is
okay, great. Okay,
new
I just
big thing. And Armin, you're doing a fantastic job. I am a fan. I am a viewer of Secular Jihadists. I love what you guys are doing. So internationally, there's potential for a lot of growth. I'm good friends with Michael Sherlock, the new executive director of Atheist Alliance International.
I heard the interview that you had with him, the talk that you had. Yeah.
I never had an interview with him, but I know he mentioned me in one of them. But him and I are in close communication. There's a lot of stuff happening. I can't keep track of it, half of it. But internationally, things are doing very well. But in the United States, things are stagnating, really, really stagnating. Where's the big 2020 event that was meant to really show the potential that the atheist movement has had in the United States? There is none. Dave was planning secretly a third Reason rally. Only a handful of people, around 5 people, knew about it. I was one of them. He was planning on taking the Reason Rally domain and label and getting it back, taking it away, and building it up.
Secularism is dying in the United States because you all voted for.
Well, secularism is not that. Secularism and atheism is growing. The problem is that there isn't much of an organized movement to really channel it, because in the United States, many people in positions of power in organized atheism care more about their woke politics than they care about advancing their original mission.
And because it's funny how you see the attack on secularism and atheism from the left, but you're not seeing it from the right. Secularism is also under attack in the United States because your lot voted for Trump.
If that's the case, then why was the atheist movement so powerful in the United States during the George W. Bush years? It wasn't
because
powerful.
Trump is worse than Bush.
No. I have an answer. I have an answer for that.
Yeah.
Sorry, you asked a question. I want to give you the answer. The answer is that the majority of atheists, even like the vast majority of atheists, were not for Bush. They weren't for Bush because they knew that Bush was the side of the moral majority. It was the side of the Christian evangelicals.
And the right was more evangelical.
I know, but no, it wasn't more evangelical. It's just as evangelical now. The evangelical support, Thomas.
I think it's still present. It's still there, just not as much as it was.
It's not only still there, but just look at the intensity. We're not talking about the number of people support. I know there's young people who have diversity of views, but the evangelicals are more gaga and over Trump, and Trump is more catering to them. Even making Jerusalem the capital of Israel, all of that stuff, which doesn't mean anything. It's just a formality. He's doing this stuff. He's playing to them like nobody has before. Supreme Court judges, everything that we just talked about. Like it is.
We already mentioned this, but
yeah, I know. But Armin's right. I mean, that's what's happening is that in the Bush years, atheists were not by and large going for a party that was enabling and empowering the Christian establishment and vice versa. It wasn't happening.
I don't think that's the case, because there still would have been secular activism. There still would have been atheist and secular activism, just from a different angle. It doesn't matter that the majority, a larger group of atheists happen to go to the right. There would have then been
secular.
There would have been resources then directed for those people to get involved in activism. When the movement was less divided back in 2014 and 2015, American Atheists publicly debuted at CPAC.
Okay,
that's when a mainstream atheist organization was able to do that without many repercussions.
Thomas, we don't do activism just for the sake of doing activism. We do activism for the sake of results. And the results of electing Trump was endangering trans rights, women's rights, secularism, free speech, and all that with Supreme Court judges, anti-science and climate change denial. So, secularism is under attack. you can't just measure the results based on how much activity secular activists are doing. The fact that the results were directly under attack by electing Trump is a lot bigger indicator than what level of activism we have on the ground. I also want to mention that the interesting thing some people talk about the atheist movement is very interesting, because like I mentioned the atheist movement, and then people say like, and then I talk about globally we're growing. We're like, oh yeah, globally, other places, which is interesting because it seems like we look at America as one side and the rest of the world as if this afterthought, like it's a second thing, and then it's the whole rest of the fucking planet just comes second to one country, right?
I'll agree with you.
I mean, the assumption that we're talking about atheist activism, we're assuming that we're talking about United States is kind of like too American centrist, I think. But
it is, and the only reason I'm talking about it is because I lead an American organization. We're not doing international work at this time, despite the fact that we are an affiliate now of Atheist Alliance International and the International Association of Atheists, and we support the work that they are doing, especially since defending the rights of ex-Muslims and defending the right of ex-Muslims to blaspheme is something that we really care about, especially since the regressive left is opposed to that. So we do relate in that regard. But I do agree with you. I think in many conversations, things have gone very American-centric. So I'll say this too, Elevator Gate, the one event that really caused the split in atheism to slowly advance more and more and more, that happened in Ireland. That didn't happen in the United States. I bet, Ollie, you're a Canadian, and Armin, you lived in Canada for a while. You could probably agree with me that, this stuff was happening in Canada too. So maybe it'd be better to say maybe it was more of a Western problem, a first world problem, where people are complaining and we're dividing over first world issues more than issues in other parts of the world.
I think that there were several aspects to that. I mean, there are some. So again, I've been in this, and this is a sore point for a lot of people. There were some people where there were accusations. There were some sort of atheist celebrities who weren't celebrities before. They were academics, and I'm not mentioning names here. They were academics, and they were in universities and doing all this stuff, and they were just kind of obscure. And suddenly, with the new atheist movement, they became rock stars. Okay? And suddenly they had groupies, and they had people. The whole thing sort of changed. And there are a few who did take advantage of it in really creepy ways. And again, not naming it. And I'm not talking about people who were accused and I don't know about, what turned out. I'm talking about things that I know for sure from firsthand, secondhand accounts. Okay. So that did happen. So there were some incidents like that. The problem is when you address them, I think that people in the atheist movement should have taken that, and I'm talking about cases that everybody knew about and they used to whisper about anyway.
It was like a group of kids in high school whispering over a cafeteria, and then maybe it would go on Pathos like 2 years later.
But the thing is, the people who ran the stuff knew. Okay, and this is actually I have to say I'm one of them as well. And what we should have done in retrospect is just taken that, acknowledged it, said, okay, fuck this, we're not going to tolerate this. Take it out of the way and let's focus on the goal. Okay, Get rid of these fucking creeps. I don't care how qualified you are. This doesn't belong here. We want women to feel safe here. We want everybody to feel safe. This is a community for everybody, and we're focused on a fucking goal. I didn't live my entire life in Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, all this stuff, to come here and talk about, get into all this Jerry Springer shit. Like, I wanted to. And that doesn't mean that all of this was illegitimate. There was real shit happening that sucked. Yeah. And
I think there was real stuff too. I just don't think it was as large as some people said it was. And
eventually, there are things that snowballed out of control, but it didn't have to be that way.
And I heard some incidents, for example, of actual instances of harassment or inappropriate behavior at certain events. But then what happened is some people used those incidents or some people even made up certain incidents and then said, okay, we're now going to judge by the demographics. Like you had after Elevator Gate, right, when Rebecca Watson complained about this and said that this is an example of systematic sexism, which, by the way, I think the guy is totally innocent of. He simply consensually asked her out in an elevator, and he left the elevator and nothing happened. He went back to his hotel room. She went back to her hotel room.
Yeah.
what she did then.
It was bad judgment. It was 4 a.m.
It was extremely bad judgment, and then it was bad judgment, but nothing really bad happened. This didn't deserve to be a blog post, and this wasn't an example of systematic sexism or racism, because what happened with these people, and these people started the whole regressive infiltration. This happened back in 2011, 2012. They then they used these incidents, and then what they did is they said, aha, if you go to the majority of atheist conferences, the majority of the science skeptical nerds that are there are of a certain pigment and have a certain genitalia. Therefore, that there is a systematic problem at atheist conferences, and not only is there a systematic problem, we're going to go to the boards of all these organizations and claim that we have the goggles to see the true racism and sexism, and that then to gain power, insert our ideology.
They weren't. Oh, yeah, so
okay, hold on. No, Aline, it's my turn.
Yeah, go ahead, Armin.
I'm going to defend Rebecca Watson here, because people say, like, "Oh my God, the reaction of these! Look at these woke lefties. They get so sensitive, and they're like, oh, this is too controversial. This hurts my feelings."
I don't think they're sensitive. They're just wrong.
Those are the people who left it. Like, people say, look at these lefties, they're like crybabies, they can't take it, right? And then what happened? Rebecca Watson, like, hey, here's some free advice for you guys. Don't come to a girl that was alone in an elevator and ask her out because she might feel unsafe. Maybe that was good advice, maybe that wasn't good advice. But look at the people lost their mind. They're like, oh, it was consensual. This is not the most important issue. Why are you even talking about this? Oh, look at women in Saudi Arabia. So why? Because of women in Saudi Arabia, you're not allowed to give free. I'm against Richard Dawkins on this. Like, because of women, because there are some women that are losing their clitoris, and because a woman doesn't have rights, you're not allowed to give tips to men regarding best practices on how to approach women.
This is where I'm in total agreement with you, and I think we should act as adults, and we should be treating people respectfully, and we shouldn't go out of our way to get people into uncomfortable situations where they would feel uncomfortable. That I'm not in favor of.
And that's actually, Armin, that's exactly what I was trying to say, is that when things like this happen, listen to it, acknowledge it, say, this was wrong. That was creepy. It was wrong. You shouldn't have done it. And you know what? Let's get back and focus on the goal.
And that's what it should have been. My issue is that they said that this is then evidence of systemic sexism and racism, and that all these people, by the way, like people that were super liberal and on Team Blue, especially when the right was more religious, right? These are people that were super duper progressive and liberal leaning, and somehow our conferences and events were just as bad as the cross burnings. Like, give me a break. And I think we bought that crap too easily, and that's how these people were able to rise up through the ranks of so many of these organizations.
Thomas, what's wrong with to Armin's point? Like, what's wrong with just saying that? Okay, you know what? There's a thing. Like, and I'm telling you, suddenly these archaic professors are becoming rock stars and having groupies. So yeah, people on their high horse. Yeah, we've had a problem with these atheist conferences, and we're going to start addressing it. Let's bring in some women. Let's have a conference about it. Let's talk about it. Let's have a meeting, and let's move it, and then let's start planning the next rally. That's it. It's really simple. That's what they do at companies. That's what they do everywhere. And anyway, let's not go too far down this rabbit hole, because I think what we're trying to do now is, one thing you talked about, this vibrant new atheist movement that was happening. What happened to it? One of the things that happened to it is that was its time, and now we're in a different time. Okay, so when we talk about 2015. And what was going on then, and why all of this, a lot of atheists started going towards conservatism and towards Republicans. And I'll tell you, one of the really, really big reasons is people tend to forget that was the time when ISIS was huge. ISIS was the biggest thing on the planet at that time. That was in all the news. Every time there's a terrorist attack, it was ISIS. It wasn't some white supremacist. Now we know most of the time. Now it's very different. But it was a big thing. ISIS was viral. Okay, so the left wasn't talking about it; they were apologizing about it. Okay, and the right and Trump and all these guys were just talking about it, and they were saying it in plain terms. And this is something that people like Sam Harris had talked about, people like us had talked about. That the left is in denial about this. The regressives, Majid Nawaz was talking about it, and people did sense it, and a lot of the atheist community at that point, because of this issue specifically, ended up thinking that the regressive left, they sort of went and got really, really turned off by that. Now, what happened After that is the pendulum completely swung the other way. They started overcorrecting for it, where like the progressive left sometimes looks rational compared to some of the shit that's going on with, you know, the going and supporting Richard Spencer and defending like all of these things.
Right.
So you ended up with an overcorrection, and hopefully, you know, it'll start coming back. But now the conversation is different. It's not new atheist time anymore. That was 10 years ago. It's not ISIS time anymore. That whole, you know, Islam thing.
That's 5 years ago.
Yeah. Ex-Muslims have gone mainstream. A lot of the stuff has been normalized. There's still a whole bunch of work to do. Yes.
Yes, there is.
But the question is, where is the future? And we're going to do this. We're going to talk about this. This is the last question before we go into the patron questions. So where is the future? What are you going to do as a conservative organization in terms of...
Last question. I have a few questions too.
Okay, then last question before Armin's questions, and then we're going to go to patrons.
So that was a great question. Thank you, Ali. So overall, I think the future for atheist activism is still bright. I do not believe that the atheist movement, or what used to be known as the atheist movement, is ever going to be the same way ever again. I say this on every podcast. If woke atheist organizations or woke atheist organizers agree with Atheists for Liberty on certain church-state separation or religious freedom or pro-normalizing atheism events or principles or propositions or whatever, or campaigns, and they call me up and they want to work with me, I'll be the first one to say yes. I'll be the first one to put aside my differences and say, yes, this is the kind of unity and bridge building that I wanted to see ever since I attended Reason Rally 2. I love this stuff, and I will absolutely cooperate with you despite our differences. Cool. That sort of time has, in my opinion, passed. I don't think that there are certain people in the United States will want to work with an emerging organization like Atheists for Liberty, just like how many of them do not want to work with ex-Muslims. And it's a real shame to see what happens. Does that mean that we should give up and say, oh, 2012 is not coming back anymore, folks? Richard Dawkins is not going to be in the same room as, Jen McCright, or I don't know, let me think.
Vosh.
Vosh, right?
I'm sorry, I have no idea. I still don't know Vosh is like.
Amy, or P.Z. Myers.
I like the fact that Vosh is there now, because I think like the leftists didn't have that like firebrand activism. They all seem like, even if I disagree with him, I really think that the left needed a more like better representative online. So it's not that they have people. Yeah.
Full disclosure, I don't know who Vosh is. You guys were talking about him, so that's why I just kind of yelled.
I was. By the way, for people who don't know Vosh, I was on. Check out my latest interview with him. He just released it. But anyway, so first of all, regards to ex-Muslim stuff, I'm completely okay with if an atheist organization wants to stay away from Islam, if they want to focus on. Okay, so if an atheist organization, for example, United States, wants to focus on Christianity, to me that's as problematic as an atheist organization in Israel wanting to focus on Judaism, or an atheist organization in India wants to focus against Hinduism.
That I totally agree with you on. But when they start getting into unfriending, acting incredibly unprofessional, ad hominem, bashing, blogging, going into their triggered mode, and complaining about how evil Armin is and how horrible he of a guy he is because he doesn't support our ideological garbage. That's the problem. It's one thing to say, we have a different mission. We happen to have a different mission than this organization or that organization or that individual, and we're going to do our own thing. Thank you.
So, I agree. I agree. I agree with
that too.
Another thing is, would you accept when your organization starts doing events? I mean, you have events and stuff like that, right? I don't know.
Yes, like, we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff soon.
So check out there. Like I think Ali is going to send me a whole bunch of links when the public version of this podcast comes out. I'm going to include all the links. But would you allow woke speakers? Like
yes.
Okay, so
yes.
Far left. People's okay, great. So you allow that.
Yeah.
Good. So
we're not going to play the same game that the woke side of the movement did. If there's a demand, we will meet it, and we will have those discussions.
Fantastic. So that was just my question. I just wanted to comment something about what Ali started saying at the beginning, and you agreed with regards to why can't we all agree on liberty or equality? Why are we seeing these as trigger words for the other side to be against? What the left-wing person and a right-wing person might respond to that. A left-wing person might say, like, yeah, I am all for liberty, but the people who keep using the word liberty are, to me, it seems like this has turned into a rallying cry for far-right agenda against actual progressive values. So even if they're using the word liberty, they don't actually mean liberty. They're actually against the liberty of gay people and trans people. So if I'm against people who use the word liberty, that doesn't mean I am against liberty. For me, that's just a dog whistle for something else. And a lot of right-wing people might also say, yes, I am all for equality, but it seems like equality has become into a dog whistle for all this woke nonsense. And a lot of people who use equality are actually against the Enlightenment values that I stand for, and they're actually not progressive, they're regressive. So that's what both sides might say against the words liberty and equality. Right. So just wanted to be fair to both sides on that. Anyways, patron questions.
So let's go to patron questions. We've got about 20 minutes. So this has been, wow, man, I love this. Thomas, thank you for coming on.
This was a lot of fun. Yeah,
I'm really, really glad we had this conversation. I love the fact that we just need more of this. I think that we need to focus on the goal, man. It's just, I'm tired of
We need to focus on the goal, and I see you guys as part of the same team. The same exact team. People like yourselves or who are part of the target demographic of what Atheists for Liberty is trying to reach out to. We're not simply a right wing or a conservative organization. We are right of woke. So anybody who is against the sort of religion of wokeness that has popped up, but is also against theocracy, supports atheists.
And I got to say one thing. I do support a lot. I'm with the woke people on a lot of things. I actually am. The only problem with it is the religious part of it. Is that, the idea that, okay, well, Thomas Sheedy, if he's not with us, then we got to cancel him.
And he's against
that's a part of it. It's not about the issues. I support Black Lives Matter. Either Armin and I had this whole conversation.
We have liberals We have liberals that support the mission of, say, Black Lives Matter, who are Democrats in the United States, who simultaneously are against what the religion of wokeness or social justice or whatever you want to say has become.
Absolutely.
And work with some people on the opposite side of the political spectrum or of the party spectrum to fight for the same goals and principles that the organization stands for. And that's all we're asking.
Cool. Okay, so Jim King, 10:52 p.m., Armin, says, when I watch Turning Point stuff, it is mostly about owning the libtards. I don't often see them pushing policy. So I got to say that I am with you on that. There are young sort of conservative organizations, libertarian organizations that I like, but Turning Point USA and some of that stuff that Candace Owens says, the climate change denying, the Native Americans, like they were all cannibals. So, monotheism set them straight, shit like that she talks about. Is just, I don't see how that is reasonable. I don't see how it's rational.
Yeah. So I'll comment on this stuff. I overall agree with the concept and the idea of the Blexit movement. I think the idea of the Blexit movement is really nice. The idea of promoting the narrative that you don't have to be of one political party or one political side if you're Black. I overall appreciate the goals. I know some people involved with Blexit, and I wish them the best. But when it comes to Candace, sometimes, and some of the things she says, like about climate change, I do cringe. I do cringe when she says stuff like that. She recently, I think a few weeks ago, tried calling out Sam Harris on Twitter. She gets herself into battles that she shouldn't have to be in, especially, when she's made friends with so many of these anti-SJW people, these quote-unquote walkaway people, many of these types, she will sometimes, in my opinion, create enemies that she doesn't need to create. And I'm not saying this is someone who's bashing Candace. I just think she could do a better job trying to grow
you can bash her all you want here.
Did you see her take on the protest?
It's something I liked either.
Her take on the protest was horrible. Did you see that?
Yes, I saw her video on her opinion on George Floyd, and I totally disagree. And as a libertarian,
anybody that brings up, I mean, what? Like, oh my God, he was not a good person. He was a porn star. Who gives a fuck?
Who gives a hell? That doesn't mean he deserved to die and be killed for 8 minutes straight in front of people.
No.
Wait, the fact that he was doing porn makes me like him more.
Yeah.
I understand.
No, but there were other things. That the problem is that it wasn't about the George Floyd thing. She was operating on the assumption that he is being treated as a martyr, but he's not a martyr. He's a symbol, right? And he's the straw that broke the camel's back.
But she's completely missing the point.
So
what the issue is.
Of course.
If you guys are ever interested, this is a free plug. I listen sometimes to this guy. I don't agree with him on everything. He's a libertarian. He ran for governor of New York State. He has a podcast now. His name's Larry Sharp. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him. He did a great video response a few days ago to Candace's monologue about George Floyd. I highly suggest checking it out. Gives a very nuanced and balanced view on this, and he mostly disagrees with Candace, and I 100% agree with Larry Sharp's perspective.
I want to ask about this.
Kudos to Imam Tawhidi for making Candace support Imam Hussein.
Oh yeah, that was masterful. I loved it. He's like, Imam Hussein was a reformer. I was like, wow, that literal jihadi of all jihadis. Like now you're a suicide bomber. Like
diversity is our strength. So.
Yeah, diversity is our strength. Hey, so I got just related to that. I got to ask.
Wait, are you saying that? Do you agree with that statement? You don't?
Overall, I do, but I was being a little provocative.
Okay, but I just to be clear, I unironically agree with that.
Of course I do.
As do I. I do agree. I was just
the U.S., which you say is one of the greatest countries in the history of the world, and I agree, and I say that about Canada too. One thing they have in common:
United States is at the same time the best and the worst country in the world.
Right, innovation and immigration. It's a land of immigrants, and the strength of it is the diversity. I'm telling you, I have that. When I talk to my Jewish friends, I'm like, if we were living in Israel, like we wouldn't even know each other. And right now we're playing in a band together. We're working out together. It's crazy. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, the one thing I wanted to say, there are some conservative black commentators. There's John McWhorter, who is sort of more independent, but Thomas Sowell, right? And Thomas Sowell said that I actually I want to get your opinion on this. So he said something about slavery. Okay. That I just thought was bizarre because it's being celebrated a lot and people have been sending me this and tweeting it at me, right? And no, damn it, I have to find the quote. Yeah, there it is. So he said, quote, Thomas Sowell, the people, and this guy is very admired in the conservative movement, the people made worse off by slavery were those who were enslaved. Their descendants would have been worse off today if born in Africa instead of America. Put differently, the terrible fate of their ancestors benefited them. He's kind of saying that slavery benefited the descendants. If someone said that about the Holocaust, Jews are a lot better off now. They're in different places. They're doing so well. And it'd be happening because of the Holocaust. If someone said that about that would be absolutely outrageous. You could argue that it's true.
Wait, who's this? Who said this?
Thomas Sowell.
Thomas Sowell, he's a big sort of I don't know. He's a conservative black professor. He said a lot of very good on other things too. But it's
I understand where he's coming from. I would have not said it that way, but it's partially true.
Wait, you understand where he's coming from? Where is he coming?
I understand where he's coming from to a degree, and I'll explain why. The living conditions overall in the United States are better in comparison to the living conditions in most African countries. And it is true that African Americans living today, right, are having better conditions living in the United States or in North America.
Missing the point.
That's obvious.
The way that he said it, though, I feel like just created a lot of extra tension that didn't even need to be.
Okay, but do you agree? Okay, I didn't. The way he said it, do you understand why it's wrong?
I understand it. I do understand.
Why is it wrong? Why is it wrong that he said? Because I have a response to that, but I want to hear your response.
It's just it's something that would have automatically created a lot of attention, got a lot of people upset.
I'm not talking about the phrasing. Why is it logically wrong?
I agree it's wrong or not?
Yeah. Why is it logically wrong? Oh, you don't agree.
It's not logically wrong.
Let me tell you why. Okay, so here's why it's logically even wrong to say that, because it's missing the intention. Yeah. Like, it's kind of like saying, like, let's say, for example, you had somebody that kidnapped a woman and wanting to, with the intention to rape her, and then the police officer comes and the police officer saves the victim and they fall in love and they get married, and you're like, you know what this rapist did? He made me find the love of my life. So this rapist, basically, I thank you, rapist.
I had another parallel.
I agree with it. I do understand the logic behind that. You could be very offensive. You could make more offensive references, but it would make the same sense. 9/11. There were probably many families or spouses that ended up meeting new partners and starting new families and having children that they really love and care about because maybe their former partners died in these September 11th attacks. Very terrible thing to say, like, oh, I'm so happy that the Twin Towers came down.
Well, the Twin Towers coming down, like, it did benefit a lot of, that probably helped Bush get reelected and a whole bunch of things. But the parallel I would draw is the Holocaust happened, 6 million Jews died, and then a lot of them went off to different places, and then the diaspora, obviously a lot of them are way better off now in the U.S. than they would be in Israel, and saying, well, maybe the Holocaust eventually benefited Jews because a lot of them ended up coming to the U.S. and getting...
I don't think it benefited.
It's insanity.
It is insanity.
Yeah,
all I'm saying is I see where he's coming from. It's so sad that I feel like I'm on the defensive with that reference. Like, I don't know where.
That was actually unfair of me because I'm putting you on the spot. And you can defend.
I get where you're coming from.
Hey, this is what you signed up for when you joined the Republican Party.
It is, and I am enjoying it. I am enjoying it.
Okay.
It's really.
One of the good things about Thomas is, like, it's like the firebrand, the David Silverman thing too, is like, just love going at it and just. I
love it. As long as we come to a consensus that we're all on the same team afterwards, we can say as many weird things to each other, and at the end of the day, at least we'll have more things in common than we don't.
I know. So hold on. I think there's a lot of comments. And I think, people have enjoyed this a lot.
There's questions at the end. There are more questions at the end.
Okay, good. So let me just go backwards then. Okay, so Mars at 12:09.
Love Mars.
Yeah. Regarding the Supreme Court, if Trump's re-election does come to pass, do you think conservatism has liberalized enough to mitigate the worst of what most of us will think will happen? Regarding the Supreme Court?
No, or at least I don't think so. Or no, or at least I don't know. I'm guessing, at the moment, I'm guessing no, and it's because I think of the generational difference. I think, President Trump, even though I think the moral majority is dying out more. I think secularism and atheism is growing in the conservative movement, and eventually you will see the moral majority or the remnants of it completely gone. But at the moment, they aren't. Yeah. Right? So you're not going to see most of the moral majority evangelicals that are alive in 2020 be dead by 2024. You probably would see, that happen maybe a few decades from now, but that's sad, not sadly, I don't want people to die, but that's just not going to happen. So under this logic, under what we discussed and debated, and whatever conclusions people have come, based on that, no, I don't think so.
Okay. I know. And the other thing is, like, the Supreme Court is lifetime appointments, so that's a very serious thing.
Maybe 8 years, maybe 10 years, but not 4. I don't think 4. I think in the next decade, because the people that go to the Turning Point conferences, the Young Americans for Liberty, Young Americans Foundation, all that anti-SJW, own the libs kind of stuff, that are more secular and really don't care as much about religion, they'll be in more positions of authority. Some of them will be lawyers by then. Some of them will be executives of some of these organizations and PACs and lobbying groups. But at the moment, I think 2024 is too soon.
I got to say, this is one thing that Republicans do very, very well. And this is exemplified actually by your website, because I'm seeing your website and it's phenomenal. And I told you this before too. The messaging, you're already registered, you're fully organized, your organization is ready and just raring to go. And this is and messaging is super, super tight. Right. And this is one thing that, we talked about defund the police. I mean, this is something that talking about.
Okay. But here's the thing, though.
And by the way, I agree with that program. I just think it's a terrible name for it because it's not about defunding the police.
Yeah. Let's not get sidetracked. But the effects of Trump on secularism because of the Supreme Court that he's going to choose is going to go way, way beyond 2024, and that's why I think anybody who supports Trump is doing a major disservice to secularism. I think you cannot call yourself a secular activist if you support Trump. And actually, at this point, I think that also applies to people who are saying that we're never going to vote for Biden either. I think that extends to them. Like he's got like the Bernie Bros and the MAGA people supporting him in a way. If I was in the United States and I could vote, and if I was in a state that my vote actually mattered, I would vote for Trump. Oh, sorry, Biden. Fucking. I'm gonna cut that. No, don't cut that. Don't cut that, please. Somebody, no. This is gonna. Oh no! What did I do? He's on my side. I assume. Anybody? I'm gonna put this. I'm never gonna release this episode publicly. This is gonna. Somebody's gonna cut that part out. Patrons. So far, only patrons have seen it. Do not cut this part out. It'll be fine. Okay, so somebody's gonna cut it out. I know it. Somebody's gonna cut that out. Oh my God, you're serious, Armin? No, it's fine. It's secular proton. Secular proton 1206.
People already hate you. So
what would you say, Thomas?
The people who hate him already hate him. Yeah, he's already a bigoted Nazi.
Yeah, he's already that.
I'd rather be called a Nazi than a Trump supporter.
Oh,
that's what I want to tweet.
We're all called Nazis. Right. Think about this. You have something in common with Trump supporters because both of you are called Nazis.
Yeah, and we also drink water.
Well, you know what?
I'm trying to be the diplomatic bridge builder.
I just want to say Osama bin Laden did send out a speech supporting anti-climate change. Like we got to do something about climate change. So secular proton is saying, Thomas, what are some lesser known things you support in the right that are in contrast with the left?
I support a few things that the 2000s right definitely would be in support about that. Supportive that the I don't know, today's right and today's left might be in a disagreement with. For one, I think America deserves to be a really big part of world affairs, even militarily. I don't agree with bombing children in Yemen. I don't. Let's make that very clear. However, I think that America's foreign policy move to be more isolationist is just not something that's benefiting the world. And I think it's actually harmful for secularism and harmful for helping out persecuted atheists and persecuted ex-Muslims around the world. I am more conservative. I don't even know what to say. It's not liberal because the today's American left has become, very populist. And I don't know what I guess we'll just call it conservative for now. Okay. I'm old school conservative, like Teddy Roosevelt conservative on American foreign policy. I want us to speak softly but carry a gigantic stick.
Ooh, okay. Now we're getting into that whole. I was going to bring up protectionism, but there's there's another question over here. There's some two really good questions, right? From Josh Sherwood, 1158 and 1157. Armin. So Josh is saying, first, who are some Republicans who can guide the party to a brighter future? So who are some of the people in the Republican Party that you admire that you think can actually guide the party away from the bullshit and towards the kind of vision that
what you need to do is you need to have a conservative or a Republican that is still on the Trump train now, but maybe differs from Trump or is able to have some flexibility. You need to win over the Trump supporters. You do need to win over the Trump supporters. The Republican Party has, in many cases, become the party of President Trump. Someone that I think is a really good example of this is Congressman Dan Crenshaw. He wins all the anti-SJWs over being this campus.
The guy with the eye patch.
He has the eye patch. He's a war hero. He disagreed actually with Trump on a few things back in like 2015. So he has some agreements with Trump. He has some agreements more with old establishment Republicans, and everybody loves him. Joe Rogan loves him. So I think he is a bright, notable figure. He's like the right's version of AOC.
So he is also the guy that Pete Davidson apologized to.
Is that a compliment?
On Saturday Night Live. Yeah, it is.
Well, in terms of popularity, yes, it is. It is a compliment. AOC has gained a lot of traction. I don't think it's a good thing, but you know what? She has, and that's a fact, and she deserves that credit.
Yeah, AOC is very charismatic, and AOC is going to have a bright future because that's what it takes in American politics. It's not about the policies.
That's what happened. That's even what happened to Trump. He was this. That's what happened to Trump. Yeah. Like it or hate it, America's been very turned on to these very persuasive.
AOC will have a future unless the self-destructive nature of the far left eats her up.
Oh, I agree. I think eventually she won't be perfect enough. I think she might have to do some compromising with establishment Democrats or just in general. I think as the left becomes more left, she'll be seen as. There is
a reason. There's actually a psychosocial reason why for people who are successful like Trump and why AOC is actually more vulnerable than him is that when you present yourself as a moralizer, someone who's very moral, then eventually even one of your failings that comes in is going to destroy you because you set yourself up as a moral figure. We've seen this with Cenk Uyghur. We've seen this with like all these sort of like social justice type people who ended up making some sexist jokes back in 2012. And
the standards are way higher than that. Right?
Way higher.
Any collaboration between AOC and mainstream Democrats is going to make her fan base go mad. Like and she cannot get ahead without actually doing some collaboration. So this is
great. People have been pissed off with working with Nancy Pelosi and others in Congress. I can't make an honest prediction of what's going to happen to her in that respect with that collaboration, but we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's you're on thin ice. It's like when you have a more sort of morally conscious side fighting an immoral side. It's a lot harder for the moral side to do it and with the rules because like the other side doesn't have any rules. They can do anything. So it's.
I'll name two other people as well. I want to make sure the person's question gets answered. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik from New York. She's become a huge name in Republican politics and conservative politics. And my Congressman Lee Zeldin from Long Island. He is a congressman that served on Trump's sort of defense committee when the impeachment hearings were going on. He is moderate enough to where he's able to gather a lot of Democrats or walkaway people and blue collar Democrats, but simultaneously have the really strong support of President Trump. So he gets him like Stefanik and like Crenshaw kind of gets the best of both.
Yeah, I've seen Crenshaw. I think Crenshaw is a really bright guy. He is like I completely agree with you. He's a smart guy. Reminds me kind of Paul Ryan, but he's smarter than Paul Ryan. What do you think of Justin Amash, like the guy who broke away?
One question after this, because we're above 2 hours now.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Oh, I think there are some Republicans who just don't see the current Republican Party as the Republican Party of just a few years ago. The Republican Party, I will agree, was vastly different. And these people are usually called rhino Republicans, sort of Republicans pre-Trump,
in name only.
Republicans in name only. Yeah, that's what they are. Romney-esque, McCain-esque Republicans. Personally, I actually don't think it's that beneficial for him to do that because you could say, yes, Trump's policies could impact the country for decades, but Trump still, as a Republican, is only going to be in office till 2024, the latest. So there's still a lot of room to, if you really want to change the Republican Party, there's, you can still stand for many of the principles that the Republican Party is still for and maybe hold disagreements with President Trump on certain issues. That's what I'm doing.
But there is a lot of...
Ali, two more questions and short answers because we're about 2 hours.
Okay, so here's going to be definitely a short answer. Josh Sherwood is saying 11:58. 11:57. Does Atheists for Liberty have any events or projects coming up? I'd love to get involved. Now you said Atheists for Liberty. You want to go back to the whole conferences and doing
I
real
really
3D events.
We're going to have a whole conference tour. We publicly debuted it at CPAC 2020 this year. We're going to be exhibiting, assuming the event doesn't get canceled, we don't think it's going to, at Freedom Fest 2020. That's sort of the libertarian version of CPAC. They have a huge conference there, and we're also going to be. We are one of the official sponsors for the new MythCon, the new Myth Informed conference. It's called #Better Discourse. That's going to be in Milwaukee in August, and we're also going to have a presence at Americans for Liberty's Mobilize 2020 conference. Look all this stuff up. Would love to get people to engage in some outreach to show support. We're also going to be doing podcasts, streams. I'm getting my start on YouTube soon. I'm having some conversations soon with some people that you both know on getting some streams done, getting some podcasts done. So there's a real bright future ahead.
Get in touch with the Atheist Republic CEO, Susanna.
Oh, I already have.
Oh, you have? Never mind.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
I haven't spoken as much as others have. I hope to do more soon.
Last question, and this is a great question, and I think we've covered some of it, but I want to add an element to it. Thomas, what is the version of the Republican Party that you hope to see in the future? And I also want to ask about how, you were talking about people, the Lincoln Project. You've got, Kellyanne Conway's husband. You've got Mattis, his former defense secretary. You've got John Kelly, his former chief of staff. These people banding together. There's probably one advantage of having Biden, because that wouldn't have happened if Bernie was the nominee. So do you see it that way? And by the way,
this question was brought to you by the Babylon Project. Go check out their podcast and YouTube channel.
I love their podcast. They are also part of the future of this new atheism. Love Vincent, love Bruce. They do great stuff. So to answer this,
I've been on the Babylon Project. Right?
Yes, you have.
Okay.
Vince,
I love these guys.
It's not me. I forgot as well. So
you guys should go on again. Their audience is growing. They have a huge potential. I love those two. They really are part of the future. I consider
Vince.
Santa, me.
I've been there too.
We're sort of like this emerging new thing that's popping up right now. Babylon, Susanna, me, a bunch of others.
Wait,
all great.
I don't know. Anyways,
that makes me hopeful. So this question.
I see. I'll explain from a secular viewpoint. I'll explain more in the conservative movement. I think that's kind of what they're trying to say. Conservative movement / Republican Party. I see it as a maybe populist, maybe continued populist party, populist right party, but a party that eventually, I do agree, in maybe several years from now, fully does abandon the moral majority talking points. I think at the moment, the moral majority still exists. They still have influence within the Trump administration, but that is going to diminish and that is going to die out. It is becoming, I guess what you guys would say, more liberalized. That's why earlier I mentioned Nick Fuentes and how there is a growing movement on the extreme right to say, we're the real Christian conservatives. We're we're actually anti-gay. We actually don't like diversity within the Republican Party and within the conservative movement. We hate it. We're going to get rid of it. They're losing.
They're like the Salafis.
The moral majority of people are going to lose.
Yeah.
We're going to win. People like me and people like the others that are coming in, we really will be the next generation of what you're going to see on the American right. In terms of organized atheism, we were trying to find the one atheist politician that could support us. We found Pete Stark, who was about to retire like a few years later. He sadly passed away recently. But now look what we have. We have a Congressional Free Thought Caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives. But it's only filled with Democrats at the moment. We don't have a single Republican or Libertarian. What we're seeing right now on the secular right is what we saw with the secular left back in 2011, where we were established. We're beginning to establish ourselves now. We're beginning to get money. We just need to find those people that can support us. And in a few years from now, we're going to be in a very similar state. We're going to be stronger. We're going to be unified, at least with the people that are willing to join us. And we're going to really propel the acceptance and normalization of atheism and secularism into the future.
Thomas, where can people find you? What's your Twitter handle, website?
So my Twitter handle is Sheedy Tom. You can also find me on Facebook at Sheedy Tom. That's my public Facebook page. If you want to support us at Atheists for Liberty, if you really want to see Atheists for Liberty excel quickly as an organization, to really build bridges and to be more present online and offline, go to atheistsforliberty.org. There's a red button in the center of your screen. Hit join us. Membership, folks, is $10 a year. $10 a year, that's it. You can do monthly donations to us. You can increase your membership, but it is $10 a year, $5 a year for students, and we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We are tax deductible. Your donation is tax deductible, and we would appreciate any support that you can give us. We want to have conversations. We want to build bridges. We want to get this thing started. The age of the new atheism, I guess I can't say new atheism anymore, has started, and it's time we get to work.
What I love about you, Thomas, is that you are open to evolving. I love the fact that you listen to ideas, and we've disagreed on a lot of things here, and you acknowledge, where there are issues, and you really stand up for the places that you actually believe in. I think it's rare. I think it's great. I would love you to eventually move from the Republican Party and come back to that. But on the other hand, I think it's really great that the Republican Party has somebody like you, because this organization, atheism, and this cause is actually really important in that it's going to be a huge factor in trying to bring the moral majority down, because as you said, there's a lot of these people who think like us in the Republican Party. The future of it seems to be going that way. So I hope it changes, and just keep evolving, keep growing, and just the way that you do. I mean, you're open, you're super, super articulate. I disagree with you probably on almost everything politically.
Oh, no.
But maybe not everything. This has been surprising because I feel like it's Armin Rizvi and Ali Navabi this time around. We've got to switch roles.
This is a lot of fun, and I really mean this from the bottom of my heart, guys. I watch the Jihadists. I watch Armin's Atheist Republic interviews. I am a fan of what you guys are trying to accomplish, and I would love to see some collaboration between Atheist Republic and your work of what you're doing in Canada, Ali, at Atheists for Liberty. I would like to see us working together. I really want to see the beginning of sort of a rebuilding of sane minds. Mm-hmm. And I think this can happen. I think this is just the beginning, and it starts with disagreements, but a good understanding of what we need to accomplish.
Yeah, disagreements are important, people. I have to tell you this. Disagreements are important. Diversity is our strength, and diversity isn't just about everybody looking the same, looking different and thinking the same. It's not that. It's not about that. So I really, really enjoyed this. I enjoyed having this conversation. And I hope we have more conversations like that. And this is why I love Armin too. And I love Armin because we're always shitting on each other too. It's great. It's fun. It's like the two. Oh God. Okay, now I'm gonna get into.
Too lovey-dovey.
I don't know. No, I was going to say two girls in a cup.
Some lovey-doveyness is good. I'm a firebrand. I hate the lovey-doveyness sometimes because it gets in the way. Not everything is worth the respect.
No, I like lovey-doveyness.
I love both of you, no homo.
Since I became a dad at the age of 41, I have become totally pro lovey-dovey. It's very, very awesome.
We all love each other. Let's hold hands. Let's have a big orgy when we meet each other.
I'm reproductively privileged.
Polyamorous festivals and hotel rooms, and no one talking about it until a blog post comes out.
Like
it'll be a lot of fun. And we won't tell each other anything until 5 years from now.
Okay, great. Looking forward to it. Anyway, this has been very long, and it was very fun, though. It was very long, and I'm hungry, and my sister, I need to also
That's what she said. Very long and very fun.
No, okay.
Was it hard for you too, Armin? Was it a little...
Anyways, can we end this here now? Or do we have to acknowledge...
I consent.
Okay, Ali.
Stuff. Yeah. I'm feeling a little stiff myself.
Oh my God. All right. Bye, guys. Bye.
Rise to the occasion.
Bye.
Get it up.
I'm going to stop now, okay? Bye.
The secular jihadists have been made possible thanks to the Illuminati and the covert support of Israel and the CIA. That's what we have been told, but we haven't received our checks yet. If you like what we do, please support us. Share the podcast with your friends. Write and tweet us with topic and guest suggestions. Or head over to secularjihadist.com and give $1 or more for exclusive access to live video. Have your questions read and answered on the air, and more. Till next time, may the flying spaghetti monster be with you.